Hello, I'm Phil, and welcome to my channel documenting the journey of a private investor. I hope you're all doing well today. So I thought I'd do a series of videos just going through my investing process, kind of from initial stock selection right through to when to buy and sell and that type of thing. And reason being, I thought this would be useful going forwards for when I make videos on kind of stock analysis or going through my portfolio and when I'm buying and selling stocks and things, just so that you have an idea of the process I'm going through to arrive at those results. I mean, I always find it interesting kind of hearing about or seeing other investors' process. It's always something that I can kind of take from that in most cases. So I thought it'd be useful / entertaining to have this on the channel that people can look at and maybe take something away from. So I've been refining this process for the last kind of 2 or 3 years. It's been through a lot of changes during that time as I'm kind of learning myself and evolving my investing style. And as I say, I'm still very much learning. I'm a beginner investor, as I say. I've only been going kind of in individual stock selection for the last 2 or 3 years. So no doubt it will evolve over the next several years, 10 years, 20 years, as I go. And yeah, I think it will be useful to have this for myself on the channel so that as my investing style evolves over the next several years, 10 years, whatever, and I kind of tweak this system to look back at it how it was now, but several years ago in the future kind of thing. So I'd also love to hear from any of you if you would be willing to share kind of your investing process or any kind of tidbits of information you've got. Please feel free to comment on anything or with any questions in the comments below. So without further ado, let's get started then. So this series of videos, as I say, is going through my entire investment process. So it's going to start with this video, which is idea generation. So it's just how I come up with those very early ideas, just honing in on which stocks I actually want to go in and research in depth with the kind of thousands and tens of thousands of options there are across the world. Second video will probably be the lengthiest of the series, and that's going through my investing checklist. So this is where the bulk of my research comes in, the in-depth stock analysis, and this is the system I've kind of been honing for the past kind of 2 or 3 years. And it's a 100-point checklist, not 100 questions, but in terms of points. And the idea is that a stock, once I've reviewed it, once I've kind of researched it, will have a score out of 100, and that will help me decide which stocks can go onto my watch list. And then one of the reasons I've done this is is to take emotions out of things. Sometimes I become quite attached to the stories of stocks, when in reality they're probably not the best investments. So this checklist helps me get through that. And then the third video will be on how I manage my portfolio. So how many stocks I have, when I kind of how I choose to kind of diversify and balance it and things. And then fourth is my buying and selling rules. So when I decide to enter a stock, when I decide to kind of sell a stock to get out of a stock, and just from there. So I say this is all my personal decisions. It's all what works for me. I'm not suggesting anyone go out and copy me at all. As I say, this is my journey of a private investor, this channel, so I'm not speaking from a voice of experience, and I'm definitely not a financial advisor, so don't take any of this as financial advice. It's purely for entertainment. Right, so idea generation. So where to come up with those initial ideas and just how to screen through the initial screen for those thousands of stocks that are out there. So for me, inspiration can come from anywhere from kind of dedicated kind of stock share specific material like magazines, like Shares Magazine, or just from being in the world, walking around, noticing that new brands are popping up, noticing that people are talking about specific products or things more than they were. So a recent example is I was in Bristol and I noticed a restaurant I hadn't seen before, Wingstop. I'd never heard of it before. It looked quite tasty. I haven't actually been in it yet. I haven't been back to try it out, but I will do. But I went back and researched it, went through and ended up passing, and is now on my watch list. So it's a stock that I am now keeping an eye on to one day possibly purchase. So in terms of like dedicated magazines, I tend to kind of read a couple a month kind of thing. It's not something that I'm constantly reading every day. but these are a few that I dip in and out of. So Shares Magazine is a great one, and it's free if you have an account with AJ Bell. So kind of why not? I tend to read kind of their weekly releases. I tend to read kind of one a month or so, or just dip in and out of them. Another one I've tried is Investors Chronicle, which has some really good information there. Money Week. My father-in-law subscribes to Money Week, so he occasionally gives me kind of bundles of them, and I'll read through back issues every now and again. And I have a subscription to Bloomberg, just the news, not the terminal or anything. And they have Bloomberg Business Week on there, which I'm sure you probably can get it physically, but I think it's digital only. All of these I only get digital only, apart from when I get my bundles of Money Week sent through to me. So this is just quite a good idea for reading through. I wouldn't take anything that is said in magazines as kind of like gospel. Their tips and things I'd always take with a grain of salt, but it's a place where I just, if I find the story of a stock interesting, or if it looks like it's got some kind of growth perspective ahead of it, then I'll then add it to a kind of a short list to screen a bit further. Another place that I get a lot of kind of early initial ideas from is bulletin boards. You have to be really careful here, especially because anyone can be commenting on a bulletin board, and I'd say there's probably only kind of 1 to 5% of comments on bulletin boards that are actually worthwhile paying attention to. But you can improve that percentage by going on paid bulletin boards. So the only paid one I go on is I have a subscription to Stockopedia, and they have the main one is the small cap value report on Stockopedia, which is full of kind of active private investors that, from what I can gather, there's a decent level of quality in there. So you can take the comments on there with slightly more reputation than you might be able to elsewhere. Another place I go, which again you can get some good information from, is ADVFN. So I think they do have a paid tier, but I just use the free one. And again, there's a lot of I don't know how people have so much time on their hands, but there's a lot of bickering on there. People having a go at each other for certain opinions and things. So you just need to read through all that, and occasionally you'll find a bulletin board on there for a specific stock that actually has some kind of mature conversation going on. So that's something useful. And then obviously places like Reddit and things really, in my opinion, are more for entertainment. But that is where movements like the meme stocks and everything kind of running up GameStop and that type of thing that's where all of that came from. So it is kind of something useful to keep your eye on, just to see what's going on like in the zeitgeist and what kind of big moves might be coming up. But again, it's very much for entertainment purposes only. And obviously there's hundreds and thousands more bulletin boards out there. Those are just the ones that I personally use. And then I'm quite a visual person, so I will read lots of magazines and bulletin boards and articles and things, but I do like to watch videos. And again, you've got to be careful. This is probably more entertainment, but at this, I wouldn't use any of this for in-depth research, but just for those initial ideas, like bringing stocks to your attention that you may never have heard of, and companies and products and inventions and new technologies and things. I find YouTube is quite a useful place to go. So they're mainly US based. I haven't been able to find a huge amount of really good UK stock based channels, but please, would be perfect if anyone does know of any good ones. Please leave it in the comments below and I'll be sure to check them out. But one of the UK ones I do watch is Vox Markets. So they have a website where they do kind of interviews with CEOs of companies and things, and they've started doing recently a daily kind of podcast, but they live stream it on YouTube, and I find that really useful. They run through a lot of small caps and mid and large cap stocks and just discuss the stories of the day basically, and do a bit of chart analysis and things. So I think they're really good. The Investor Channel in US based, he goes through mainly kind of the big large cap stocks, the FANG stocks mainly, but he does a bit of other analysis. So they're quite useful when results and stuff come out. If it's not a stock that you're actively following and you don't want to read through all the kind of annual reports and things, you can just kind of dip in and see what's going on there. Financial education. So this is he's called Jeremy, I think. He gets a lot of stick, I've noticed, from other channels and things. There are lots of channels out there I wouldn't take seriously, but I dipped in and watched a few of his videos, and I think he does know what he's talking about. certainly more than I do anyway. So I've been watching him for a few months now, and he's very willing to take a bit of risk. So he's not going to be to everyone's investment style, but he does kind of dividend stock picks and things as well, and I just find him quite entertaining. And I think his returns over the past 5 years have been kind of 20-25% on average. So he obviously knows what he's doing at the moment anyway. And then another one I watch is Brian Feroldi, and there's two of them. They're both called Brian actually, which is a bit strange. And they're kind of similar in terms of a bit more risk prone. They will do kind of analysis of earnings and things on more kind of up and coming companies, not ones that are necessarily that established. And obviously podcasts as well. I don't listen to podcasts as much as I do watch video. As I say, I'm more of a visual person. I quite like seeing them analysing charts and going through kind of earnings reports and things. I find it quite a bit more difficult to analyse if they're talking about data and stuff. It's a bit more difficult to do if you've only got the audio. But these are a few that I listen to. Bloomberg has lots of podcasts on there. Merrin Talks Money is quite a good one that's UK based. Paul Scott, who is a commentator on the Small Cap Value Report on Stockopedia, he does a weekly podcast running through the stocks that he has analysed in the past week, and he gives some macro views as well most weeks in terms of what's going on at the moment. It's obviously quite based on interest rates and what's happening with that and stuff, but that's worth a listen. And then there's the companies and market shows on Investors Chronicle, but there are hundreds and possibly thousands, I don't know. And obviously I haven't tried most of them, so I'm sure there's loads of other good ones out there, but these are ones I listen to every now and again. I'll sometimes pop one on if I'm going for a run or something, and just listen to that as I go. So that is to get the just initial list of ideas to take further to the kind of next screening stage, and all throughout this process it's very quick research. So the idea at this stage is I don't want to be spending more than 5 to 10 minutes looking at a stock, and if it passes this stage then it will go into my in-depth research stage. But I will go on to this in the next video. So this is my checklist video, but the first part of the checklist is split into financials and business. So the first part up here is the first 50 points, and I can go through this very quickly. So if there's just for an example here, this is Games Workshop, a UK-based company that does the kind of miniatures, the action miniatures for the tabletop game. So I would just jump on initially and look through the financials very quickly. This is Stockopedia, so a screenshot pulled from Stockopedia, but there's multiple places out there you can get this same data from. And as I say, I'll get onto the checklist in the next video, but I'll just run through and check the financials. And if it passes my checklist score, then great, it can move on. If not, I drop it at this stage. It's just gone. There's no point in wasting time on stocks that aren't going to kind of meet the bar. Hello, it's Phil from the future here. I've just been editing the video, and I've realised I should probably mention at this stage when I'm talking through, looking through a quick view of the financials, that I do use screens as well. So you can set up parameters with software such as Stockopedia to screen through all of the stocks in their database for ones that meet certain financial parameters. So I use that as well, but I'm going to get onto that in the next video when I run through my checklist, so that I can tell you what inputs I put into the screens to bring up a list of stocks for me to look through. So I thought I'd just mention that now. So screens is another thing I use at this stage to whittle down the amount of stocks that I'm looking through. Okay, so back to the regularly scheduled video. And then if it does pass that, well, probably before that actually, it's just a very quick look at a bit more in depth of what they do in terms of like going to their website and just checking it out. So do I find the company interesting is the first one. So there is this big saying in a lot of books that I've read that it's good if a company is boring. And I agree to a certain extent, because it normally makes it easier to understand as well. But I also believe that you have to be interested enough in the company that when you're coming to research it, every time they come out, bring out results and read through their annual reports and quarterly filings and things, if they're US stock, that you are not dreading it, that you're not kind of falling asleep every time you have to read through their next set of results. You need to be interested enough in the stock to be engaged when you need to kind of keep up with what's going on. And secondly, just on a broad basis, do I understand what they do? Because if I don't understand fully how they're making money, who their customers are, and just how they operate their business, then I've got no way to kind of tell as I'm going along how the company's doing. If they're running into trouble or anything like that, I'm not going to be able to tell. So I just need to make sure from a broad level as well at the start that I understand what they are doing and what they're selling and what the company is. I should also say at this stage as well, obviously, as you can see in the background, wrong side, books. I've got quite a lot of books, that, most of which I've read, but I've got a lot to read through as well, and audio books and things. Very, very useful, essential to be reading books on topics and things for investing, I believe. But at this stage, I would say not particularly useful, because most books are kind of historical in nature. Like, once a book's been written, once it's been a year, in terms of researching new stocks and things, it might be slightly out of date. So very, very good for researching sectors, researching industries, and kind of just advice on general investing and everything. As you know, I don't need to tell you how useful books are, but for me, not the most useful thing at this stage of the process. So moving on to the next section. So once it's got through the bits I've just discussed, the other couple of final hurdles are: make sure it's not a recent IPO. So my rule is that it hasn't IPO'd in the last 3 years. So it's been a public company for at least 3 years. And my reason for that, even in just my short experience of kind of 2-3 years investing, is that there tends to be a trend that the owners of the company will make the company go public for a way of cashing out. And what will happen is it will IPO, the share price will, let's get this right this way, will go up briefly for a week or two, and then it will crash as the management, the owners, start selling off their shares and cashing out. Obviously this isn't always the case. There's some good IPOs that IPO and then consistently go up, but I think more often than not this is the case. Or they struggle with the costs and things of an IPO and the management of it, and it takes them a few years to get on top of things, and their performance for the first 2 or 3 years isn't great. So I've just set myself a rule that I won't add any stocks to my watch list until they have been a public company for at least 3 years. And the other one is that there isn't any excessive risk involved with the company. Now, I've broken my rule on this a couple of times, so I probably need to be a bit more strict with myself on this, but just that there's not any unnecessary, like, over-the-top risk with the company. So, for example, it's a very good company, but I won't invest in Taiwan Semiconductors just because of and I don't know how blown out proportion this is, but all of the talk with the risk of China invading Taiwan and that type of thing. And, like, for example, kind of investing in companies in very risky geographies in some African nations, or Israel at the moment is a big topic of discussion with all the kind of riots and things that are going on there. So just anything that's just unnecessary risk that you can't predict, I'll just drop it at this stage as well. So if it passes those things, it's interesting, it's not going to bore me to death, it doesn't have excessive risk, and it has it's passed my financial checklist, then it'll go onto my deep research list, and I'll get onto the process of researching, going through my checklist in the next video, as I say, which will be coming in within a week. So the idea of going through this very quick process, which, as I say, should take no more than 5 to 10 minutes per stock, is to hopefully mean that you don't have a stack of thousands of companies to research in depth, and it saves time, which therefore will be saving you money in the long run, hopefully. So, as I say, this is the first stage of the process. This is probably the most basic, well, it definitely is the most basic part of the process, just getting those initial early ideas, but I will run through the entire process in the next kind of few videos, which is where all the real kind of detail and information is going to come that I've put together for my own individual process. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Please do comment below if you've got any kind of ways of doing things that you think might be useful for me to hear. I'd love to hear how other people go about getting their initial ideas and anything else through the kind of process. And if anyone's got any questions or anything, obviously leave it in the comments below as well. I will leave links in the description to some of kind of the podcasts and YouTube channels and things that I mentioned, so you can quickly just click on them rather than having to go around and search them. And if you have enjoyed the videos, please do consider dropping a like or subscribing. As I say, the next few videos for the investment process will be coming out soon. And then following that, I'm going to get into kind of individual stock analysis. I'm going to be very open with kind of my portfolio of what I'll do a run through of my portfolio at the moment, and then ongoing I'll do monthly portfolio reviews, what I've been buying, what I've been selling, and that type of thing. I'll be very open about things. So that you can be involved in the journey as well, and we can see how it goes for me over the next kind of several years. Okay, thank you for watching. I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you soon.